single mother's final decision, until a police dog changed everything. 24-year-old Maria had made the most heartbreaking decision of her life: terminal cancer. No money for treatment, no family to care for 5-year-old Sophia when the inevitable happened. In her mind, there was only one way to protect her daughter from the foster care system that had traumatized her own childhood. They would face the end together, watching the sunset over the ocean at the most beautiful spot she could find. She had given Sophia the most perfect day imaginable: butterfly pancakes for breakfast, a magical trip to the zoo, ice cream that turned their tongues pink with joy. Now, as the sun began its descent toward the horizon at the coastal cliffs, Maria prepared to say the words that would end both their stories. But fate, in the form of a German shepherd named Bella and her partner, Officer Martinez, had different plans. What began as a routine patrol turned into a 4-hour conversation that would challenge everything Maria believed about being alone in the world, about the kindness of strangers, and about whether love could truly conquer impossible circumstances. This is the story of how one dog's intuition, one community's compassion, and one mother's courage transformed despair into hope and strangers into family. It's a story about second chances, chosen families, and the miraculous things that happen when we refuse to give up on each other. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead like anxious whispers as Maria clutched Sophia's tiny hand in the sterile waiting room of St. Mary's Medical Center. The 5-year-old swung her legs from the oversized chair, her pink sneakers barely reaching halfway to the floor, oblivious to the storm brewing in her mother's heart. Maria's palms were damp with sweat, and she found herself counting the seconds between each tick of the wall clock. Tick, 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 each sound hammering against her chest like a judge's gavel. "Mommy, why are your hands so cold?" Sophia asked, her innocent brown eyes looking up with concern that pierced straight through Maria's carefully constructed facade. "Just a little nervous, mi amor," Maria whispered, forcing her voice to remain steady even as her world felt like it was tilting on its axis. She smoothed Sophia's dark curls, the same color as her own, and tried to memorize the feeling of her daughter's warm, trusting hand in hers. The waiting room was a symphony of muffled anxiety: rustling magazines, quiet conversations, the distant sound of phones ringing at the nurse's station. Maria had been here 3 times in the past month, each visit bringing more tests, more worried looks from medical professionals, more sleepless nights spent Googling symptoms she wished she didn't have. The weight loss, the constant fatigue, the pain that gnawed at her insides like a red diner. From raising Sophia alone, from the endless struggle to make ends meet. Maria Santos. Dr. Richardson's voice cut through her spiraling thoughts like a blade. The older man stood in the doorway, his kind eyes shadowed with something that made Maria's blood turn to ice. She had seen that look before, the same expression the doctor had worn when he told her parents had been in the car accident 15 years ago. "Can Sophia wait here?" Maria's voice came out smaller than she intended. "Of course. Mrs. Henderson at the front desk has coloring books." Dr. Richardson's smile was gentle but strained, and Maria knew. She knew that her worst fears were about to become reality. Sophia skipped over to the reception desk, chattering about wanting to color a princess, while Maria followed Dr. Richardson down the long hallway to his office. Each step felt like walking through quicksand. The diplomas on his walls blurred together as she sat across from his desk, her hands clasped so tightly in her lap that her knuckles had turned white. "Maria, I'm afraid the test results weren't what we were hoping for." Dr. Richardson's words seemed to echo from very far away. "The biopsy confirmed our concerns. You have stage 4 pancreatic cancer. It's It's quite advanced. The world stopped. Not slowed, stopped entirely, as if someone had pressed pause on life itself. Maria heard the words, understood their meaning, but her brain refused to process the devastating reality they represented. Stage 4. Advanced. The words tumbled around in her mind like sharp stones. How? How long? The question escaped her lips before she could stop it. With treatment, we're looking at 6 to 8 months. I'm so sorry, Maria. I wish I had better news. 6 to 8 months. Sophia would turn 6 in 4 months. She would miss her daughter's 6th birthday. She would miss everything. First days of school, lost teeth, bedtime stories, scraped knees that needed kissing better. The future she had planned, had dreamed about, had worked so hard for, crumbled into dust in the space of a single sentence. Treatment options? She managed to ask, though her voice sounded like it belonged to someone else. Dr. Richardson explained chemotherapy, radiation, experimental treatments, but Maria barely heard him. All she could think about was Sophia in the waiting room, innocently coloring her princess, completely unaware that her world was about to shatter into a million pieces. When she returned to the waiting room, Sophia looked up with a brilliant smile, holding up her coloring page. "Look, Mommy, I made the princess have brown hair like us." Maria's heart cracked wide open. She knelt down and pulled Sophia into her arms, breathing in the scent of her daughter's strawberry shampoo, feeling the solid warmth of her small body, her fingers coming away wet with tears. Maria didn't realize she was shedding. "These are happy tears, mi corazón," Maria lied, forcing a smile that felt like it might break her face in half. "Mommy is just so proud of her beautiful artist." But as they walked hand in hand to their beat-up Honda Civic, Maria felt the crushing weight of her new reality settling over her like a lead blanket. 6 months to figure out how to say goodbye to the most precious thing in her life. 6 months to somehow prepare a 5-year-old for a loss that would destroy her. 6 months to solve the impossible puzzle of what would happen to Sophia when the cancer finally won. The autumn air was crisp against her face, but Maria felt nothing but the hollow ache of absolute despair, spreading through her chest like poison. Their small apartment had never felt more suffocating than it did that evening. Maria sat at their wobbly kitchen table, Sophia's homework spread out beside her laptop, trying to maintain some semblance of normalcy, while her world collapsed around her. The cheerful yellow walls that she had painted herself when they first moved in now seemed to mock her with their brightness. Sophia was in the living room, only 6 feet away, building an elaborate castle with her wooden blocks, humming a song she had learned in preschool. Maria's fingers trembled as she typed Stage 4 pancreatic cancer treatment costs into the search engine. The results made her stomach lurch. Experimental immunotherapy treatments, $150,000 to $300,000. Chemotherapy, $10,000 to $15,000 per month. Hospital stays, medications, specialists. The numbers swam before her eyes, like a cruel joke played by the universe. She opened her online banking app and stared at the devastating number, $2,847.32. That was it. That was her life savings after working 16-hour days at Murphy's Diner for the past 3 years, taking every extra shift she could get, walking to work to save gas money, buying generic everything at the grocery store. She had been so proud of that little nest egg, had thought it meant security for Sophia's future. Now it wouldn't even cover a single round of chemotherapy. Her small life insurance policy, $25,000, would barely cover a funeral and maybe a few months of rent for Sophia. The bitter irony wasn't lost on her. She was worth more dead than alive. The memories came flooding back without permission, as they always did when she felt most alone. Carlos, Sophia's father, standing in this very kitchen 5.5 years ago, when she was 18, leaving her with nothing but debt and grief. Carlos's family had never accepted her, had blamed her for trapping their son. She had learned the hard way that she could only depend on herself. But now, even her fierce independence and determination weren't enough. No amount of extra shifts or coupon clipping or walking instead of driving would bridge the gap between $2,847 and $300,000. She clicked on a new tab and searched for financial assistance programs for cancer patients. The forms were endless. Pages and pages of requirements, documentation, waiting periods. Most programs had months-long waiting lists and strict eligibility requirements. Others required a diagnosis of at least 6 months before benefits would kick in. 6 months. She didn't have 6 months. "Mommy, look!" Sophia's voice bubbled with excitement as she ran into the kitchen, carefully carrying her block castle. "It has a tower for the princess and a bridge for her horse." Maria quickly closed the laptop and pulled Sophia onto her lap, marveling at the intricate structure her daughter had built. "It's incredible, baby. You're so creative." Sophia beamed and launched into an elaborate story about the princess who lived in the castle, about her adventures and her friends and the dragon she had tamed with kindness. Maria listened to every word, storing each detail like precious treasure, while inside her chest, her heart was breaking into smaller and smaller pieces. After tucking Sophia into bed, a routine that involved 3 stories, 2 songs, and at least 5, "Just one more minute, please." Maria returned to her laptop. The blue glow of the screen illuminated her face as she dove deeper into the rabbit hole of medical debt and bankruptcy statistics. Families losing their homes to pay for treatment, parents taking out second mortgages, maxing out credit cards, setting up GoFundMe pages that rarely reach their goals. She found forums where cancer patients discussed their financial strategies with the clinical detachment of war veterans. People selling everything they owned, moving in with relatives, choosing between rent and medication. The recurring theme was always the same. The treatment was sometimes worse than the disease, not medically, but financially. Families destroyed by debt, children left with nothing but medical bills and grief. Maria's reflection stared back at her from the dark window above the kitchen sink. She looked older than her 24 years, worn down by years of struggling alone, and now carrying the additional weight of her diagnosis. The face looking back at her was the face of someone who was running out of options, running out of time, running out of hope. She pulled out a pen and paper and began making lists. Between the 2 lists was an ocean she couldn't possibly cross. The apartment was so quiet, she could hear the refrigerator humming, the upstairs neighbor's television, Sophia's soft breathing from the bedroom. This was her world, small and humble, but filled with love. In 6 months it would all be gone, and Sophia would be alone in a way that Maria knew all too well. The weight of that reality pressed down on her chest like a physical force, making it hard to breathe, hard to think, hard to see any way forward that didn't end in heartbreak for the person she loved most in the world. The clock on Sophia's nightstand glowed 2:17 a.m. when Maria finally surrendered to the inevitable and crept into her daughter's bedroom. She had been pacing the apartment for hours, her mind churning through possibilities that all led to the same devastating conclusion. There was no way out of this nightmare that didn't leave Sophia alone and vulnerable in a world that had never been kind to children without families. Sophia lay curled on her side, clutching the stuffed elephant that had been her constant companion since she was 2 years old. Her small chest rose and fell with the peaceful rhythm of innocent sleep, one arm flung above her head in complete trust and abandon. Maria sat carefully on the edge of the bed, barely disturbing the mattress, and studied her daughter's face in the soft glow of the nightlight. Sophia had her father's nose, but Maria's stubborn chin, her own dark eyelashes that looked like tiny fans against her cheeks. She was beautiful, and bright, and funny, and kind. Everything good that Maria had ever managed to create in her short, difficult life. The thought of leaving her was unbearable. The thought of what would happen to her afterward was worse. Maria's laptop lay open on the kitchen table, browser tabs still displaying the research that had consumed her evening: foster care statistics, child welfare outcomes, adoption wait times for older children. The numbers were brutal and clinical, but behind each statistic was a child, a real child like Sophia, who had lost everything and found themselves at the mercy of an overburdened, underfunded system. She remembered her own journey through foster care with crystalline clarity. The Hendersons, who had seemed kind at first, but treated her like unpaid help, making her cook and clean while their biological children played. The group home where she had learned to sleep with one eye open, where older kids took whatever they wanted from younger ones. The foster father, who had looked at her differently when she turned 16, who had made her skin crawl with his lingering glances and accidental touches. But worst of all had been the constant uncertainty, the knowledge that she was temporary in every home she entered. No matter how hard she tried to be good, to be helpful, to be invisible. With a high school diploma, $200 in cash, and no one in the world who cared whether she lived or died. The thought of Sophia experiencing even one day of that life made Maria's throat close with panic. Her daughter was sensitive and trusting, the kind of child who believed everyone was good until proven otherwise. The system would break her spirit in ways that Maria couldn't bear to imagine. She pulled out her phone and opened a new browser tab, her fingers moving almost without conscious thought. How long does it take for a child to be placed in foster care after parents' death? The results were immediate and devastating. Emergency placement could happen within hours. Permanent placement often took months or years, during which children bounced between temporary homes like unwanted packages. Her search history became darker as the night wore on. Foster care abuse statistics, children aging out of foster care outcomes, sibling separation rates in state custody. Each click was like pressing on a bruise, painful but impossible to stop. Sophia stirred in her sleep, making soft mumbling sounds that Maria had learned meant she was dreaming about something happy, probably unicorns or ice cream, or the playground at her school. How many more happy dreams would she have? How long before the harsh realities of life stole that innocent joy from her eyes? Maria's own childhood had ended abruptly at 8 years old when the police officer came to her school to tell her about the car accident. She remembered the exact moment when her safe, predictable world had shattered into chaos. She remembered the confusion, the grief, the terrifying realization that the adults she had trusted to take care of her were gone forever. She couldn't do that to Sophia. She wouldn't. The idea crept into her mind like smoke, horrible and seductive at the same time. If they went together, Sophia would never know the pain of abandonment. She would never lie awake in strange beds, wondering why no one wanted her. She would never experience the soul-crushing loneliness of growing up without a family. They could be together forever, and Sophia would never have to face the world without her mother's protection. Maria's hands shook as she opened another tab and searched for information about the coastal cliffs outside town. She had driven past them countless times on her way to work, had always thought they were beautiful, dramatic and wild, overlooking the endless ocean. It would be peaceful there, quiet, beautiful. Sophia loved the ocean. She always begged to stop and look at the waves when they drove by. The more she researched, the more the plan took shape in her mind. One perfect day together, filled with everything Sophia loved. Then a peaceful ending at the most beautiful place they knew, holding each other as they watched the sunset paint the sky in brilliant colors. Sophia up to a world that didn't want her. It was a terrible solution to an impossible problem. But as Maria sat in the darkness, watching her daughter sleep, it began to feel like the only way to protect her from a fate worse than death. Love sometimes meant making the hardest choice imaginable, even when that choice broke your heart into pieces too small to ever put back together. Tomorrow, she decided, they would have the most magical day of their lives. Tomorrow, she would give Sophia everything she had ever wanted. And tomorrow evening, as the sun set over the ocean, she would make sure that her daughter never had to face the cruel world alone. The decision settled over her like a heavy blanket, terrible and comforting at the same time. For the first time since leaving the doctor's office, Maria felt something resembling peace. She had found a way to protect Sophia from everything, including the devastating loss of her mother. She leaned down and pressed a soft kiss to Sophia's forehead, breathing in the sweet scent of her daughter's skin. "I love you so much, mi corazón," she whispered into the darkness. "More than you'll ever know." Maria woke before dawn with a strange sense of clarity that she hadn't felt in weeks. The decision, terrible as it was, had lifted a weight from her shoulders. The crushing uncertainty of Sophia's future, the endless spiral of impossible choices. Today would be perfect. Today would be everything Sophia deserved, and more. She slipped quietly from bed and made Sophia's favorite breakfast, chocolate chip pancakes shaped like butterflies. Something she usually reserved for birthdays and special occasions. The kitchen filled with the warm scent of vanilla and melting chocolate as she hummed softly, feeling almost peaceful for the first time since the diagnosis. "Mommy!" Sophia appeared in the doorway, her dark hair sticking up in adorable cowlicks, clutching her stuffed elephant. "Why does it smell like my birthday?" "Because today is a very special day, mi amor," Maria said, lifting Sophia onto her hip and spinning her around until she giggled. "Today, we're going to do everything you've ever dreamed of doing." Sophia's eyes widened with wonder. "Everything? Even ice cream for breakfast?" "Especially ice cream for breakfast," Maria laughed, her heart breaking and soaring simultaneously. But first, butterfly pancakes. They ate breakfast like queens at their tiny table, Sophia chattering excitedly about all the things she wanted to do. Maria listened to every word, storing each inflection, each giggle, each animated gesture in her memory like precious photographs. When Sophia asked, money, rationing treats and experiences. But today, she said yes to everything. Cotton candy that turns Sophia's tongue pink. A ride on the carousel where Sophia chose the biggest, most ornate horse and waved like a princess with each revolution. Overpriced souvenirs, that Sophia had always admired from afar, but never asked for. In the gift shop, Sophia pressed her face against the glass case, housing the stuffed animals, her eyes fixed on a beautiful white tiger with emerald green eyes. "She's so pretty, Mommy. She looks like she has secrets." "Then she's perfect for you," Maria said, her throat tight with emotion. "Everyone needs a friend with secrets." Sophia named the tiger Luna and carried her everywhere, introducing her to every animal they encountered. Maria took photo after photo, Sophia feeding the giraffes, laughing as a goat tried to eat her shirt, posing with Luna in front of the butterfly garden. She recorded videos of Sophia's running commentary about each animal, her theories about what they were thinking, her plans for when she grew up and became a zookeeper. "Look, Mommy, the elephants are holding hands with their noses," Sophia exclaimed, bouncing on her toes. "Just like we do." Maria knelt beside her daughter and took a selfie of them both, capturing Sophia's radiant smile and her own bittersweet expression. Every moment felt suspended in time, precious and ephemeral, like trying to hold on to sunlight. They ate ice cream cones as big as their heads for lunch, strawberry for Sophia, chocolate for Maria, and when Sophia asked if they could get another one for Luna the tiger, Maria bought a tiny cup just for the stuffed animal. Other parents might have thought she was indulging Sophia to a ridiculous degree, but Maria didn't care. Today, nothing was too much. "This is the best day ever, Mommy," Sophia declared as they sat on a bench watching the sea lions play. Luna was carefully balanced between them, also watching the show. Why can't every day be like this? Maria's heart clenched, but she kept her voice light, because then it wouldn't be special, baby. Sometimes the most beautiful things are precious because they don't last forever. Sophia considered this with the seriousness she applied to all of life's big concepts. "Like butterflies?" "Exactly like butterflies," Maria whispered, pulling her daughter close and breathing in the scent of her hair, now mixed with cotton candy and sunshine and pure joy. As the afternoon faded, they made their way slowly through the zoo one last time. Sophia insisted on saying goodbye to every animal, waving and promising to visit again soon. Maria's phone was full of photos and videos, a digital diary of the most perfect day she could have imagined. In the car on the way home, Sophia clutched Luna and chattered about all her favorite moments. "And did you see how the monkey looked at me? I think he wanted to be friends." Thoughtful. "Mommy, why are you so happy today? You look different, sparkly." Maria glanced at her daughter in the rearview mirror, seeing her own eyes reflected back in Sophia's trusting gaze. "I'm happy because I get to spend the day with the most amazing little girl in the whole world. That makes any day sparkly." Sophia beamed and went back to whispering secrets to Luna, making plans for adventures they would have together. Maria drove carefully through the evening traffic, each mile bringing them closer to home, closer to the next phase of her plan, closer to the end of everything beautiful and heartbreaking about loving someone more than life itself. After Sophia fell asleep that night, exhausted from their perfect day, and curled up with Luna clutched tightly in her arms, Maria sat at her laptop once more. But this time, her research had a different focus. She wasn't looking for treatment options or financial assistance. She was looking for the perfect place to say goodbye. The coastal cliffs stretched for miles along the shoreline, but Maria remembered one spot in particular from her drives to work. About 20 minutes north of town, there was a scenic overlook where the cliffs rose dramatically above the crashing waves. She had always thought it looked like something from a fairy tale, wild and beautiful and somehow otherworldly. It would be perfect. She studied satellite images and tourist websites, reading descriptions of the sunset views and the hiking trails. The overlook was accessible by car, with a small parking area and a safe barrier along the edge. Safe for tourists wanting photos, she thought grimly, but not insurmountable for someone with different intentions. Maria pulled out a piece of paper, Sophia's favorite stationery with the rainbow borders, and began to write. Her hands trembled as she formed each word, knowing that this letter would be the last thing she ever gave to the world, the only explanation for the desperate choice she was about to make. My dearest Sophia, if you are reading this, then something went wrong with our adventure, and I need you to know how much I love you. You are the most beautiful, kind, smart, funny little girl who has ever existed, and being your mama has been the greatest honor of my life. I'm very sick, baby girl. My body has something called cancer, and the doctors can't fix it. I only have a few months left, and when I die, there won't be anyone to take care of you the way you deserve. I can't bear the thought of you being alone and scared without me. I know this is hard to understand, but sometimes, when people love each other as much as we do, they choose to stay together no matter what. We're going to go on the most beautiful adventure together, and we'll never have to be apart. Please know that none of this is your fault. You are perfect exactly as you are, and you brought nothing but joy to every day of my life. Take Luna with you, and remember that I will love you forever and always. All my love, Mama Maria. Folded the letter carefully and tucked it into her purse, then began packing a small bag. Sophia's favorite blanket, the soft blue one with yellow stars that they had bought when she was a baby, a bag of animal crackers and juice boxes, the new stuffed tiger from today's zoo adventure, everything Sophia loved, everything that would comfort her during their final moments together. She added her phone with all the photos and videos from today, wanting whoever found them to know how happy Sophia had been, how loved she was, how this decision came from a place of desperate love rather than despair. Maybe someday when Sophia was older, no, she stopped that train of thought. There would be no someday for Sophia. That was the point. Maria double-checked the weather forecast, clear skies, mild temperatures, perfect sunset conditions. She looked up the exact time the sun would set tomorrow evening and planned their departure accordingly. They would need time to drive there, find the perfect spot, maybe have a picnic dinner as they watched the sky change colors. Second thoughts crept in like shadows in the corners of her mind. Maybe there was another way. Maybe she could contact Carlos's family, beg them to take Sophia, despite their years of silence. Maybe the experimental treatments would work. Maybe a miracle would happen. Maybe she was giving up too soon. But then she remembered the numbers on her laptop screen, the cold reality of stage 4 cancer, the statistics about children in foster care. She thought about Sophia's trusting face, her easy laughter, her belief that the world was fundamentally good and safe. How long would that innocence last in the system? How many homes would she bounce between? How many times would her heart be broken by people who were supposed to protect her? No. This was the only way to ensure that Sophia never experienced that pain. This was love in its purest, most terrible form. The willingness to make the ultimate sacrifice to protect your child from suffering. Maria closed the laptop and checked on Sophia one more time. Her daughter was sleeping peacefully, Luna tucked under her arm, her face serene and untroubled. Tomorrow evening she would fall asleep in her mother's arms with that same peaceful expression, and she would never wake up to a world that didn't want her. Tomorrow, we'll see the most beautiful sunset ever, mi corazón, Maria whispered into the darkness. And then we'll be together forever. The drive to the cliffs unfolded like a dream painted in golden afternoon light. Sophia sat in her car seat, Luna pressed against the window as she pointed out every cloud, every bird, every interesting rock formation they passed. Her excitement was infectious and heartbreaking, a constant stream of chatter about their special adventure to see the ocean. "Mommy, look, that cloud looks like a dragon. Do you think dragons live by the ocean?" Sophia's voice bubbled with wonder as they wound their way along the coastal road. "I think dragons live wherever there's enough beauty to inspire them," Maria replied, her hands gripping the steering wheel tightly as the scenic overlook came into view. "And this place is definitely beautiful enough for dragons." The overlook was even more breathtaking than she had remembered. The cliffs rose majestically above the churning ocean, the waves crashing against the rocks below with a rhythmic roar that seemed to echo the beating of her heart. Wildflowers dotted the grass in brilliant splashes of purple and yellow, and the air smelled of salt and wild herbs. Sophia scrambled out of the car the moment Maria unbuckled her seatbelt. Luna clutched tightly in her arms. "It's like a fairy tale," she exclaimed, spinning in circles with her arms outstretched. "Can we have our picnic right here?" "Wherever you want, Princess," Maria said, her voice thick with emotion as she pulled their blanket and bag from the car. She spread the blue and yellow blanket on a patch of soft grass about 10 feet from the cliff edge, close enough to see the magnificent view, but far enough to feel safe while they ate. Sophia immediately began exploring, picking wildflowers and chasing a butterfly that danced just out of her reach. She found a family of ladybugs on a dandelion and insisted on introducing Luna to each one individually. Her laughter carried on the ocean breeze, pure and joyful, and completely oblivious to the weight of the moment. Maria watched every movement, memorizing the way Sophia's hair caught the light, the graceful way she moved, the serious expression she wore when she was concentrating on something important. She took photos and videos constantly, trying to capture not just the images, but the essence of her daughter's spirit. "Look what I found," Sophia ran back to the blanket carrying a handful of the purple wildflowers. "They're the same color as Luna's collar. Can we make her a flower crown?" They spent an hour weaving flowers together, Sophia's small fingers surprisingly deft as she created an elaborate crown for her stuffed tiger. Maria helped, but mostly she watched, storing every detail of this perfect moment in her heart. The way Sophia bit her lip when she was concentrating, the way she hummed under her breath, the way she looked up periodically to make sure her mother was watching, seeking approval and sharing her joy. The sun began its descent toward the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink that seemed too beautiful to be real. Sophia gasped with delight at the changing colors, standing at the edge of the blanket with Luna in her arms, both of them silhouetted against the magnificent backdrop. "It's so pretty, Mommy. The sky looks like someone spilled paint." Maria's chest tightened with a pain so acute it took her breath away. This was it, the moment she had planned for, prepared for, convinced herself was necessary. But watching daughter so happy and alive and full of dreams, the magnitude of what she was about to do crashed over her like the waves below. "Sophia, baby, come sit with Mommy for a minute," she called, her voice barely steady. Sophia skipped over and settled into Maria's lap, still clutching Luna and her flower crown. She leaned back against her mother's chest, perfectly trusting and content. "This is the best day ever," she murmured, "even better than Christmas." Maria wrapped her arms around her daughter, feeling the steady rhythm of Sophia's breathing, the warm weight of her small body, the absolute trust in the way she relaxed against her mother's heart. The letter in her purse seemed to burn like fire, and her carefully laid plans suddenly felt like the ravings of a madwoman. This was Sophia, her bright, beautiful, resilient daughter who found joy in ladybugs and flower crowns and painted skies, who trusted completely and loved unconditionally, and saw magic in everything around her. How could she steal all of that away? How could she rob the world of this perfect little person? But then she thought about the diagnosis, about the empty bank account, about the foster care statistics, and the cold reality of what would happen when the cancer finally won. Sophia would suffer. She would be alone and afraid and heartbroken, and Maria wouldn't be there to protect her from any of it. The sun sank lower, and the moment of decision pressed closer like an incoming tide. Sophia dozed against her chest, exhausted from their perfect day, while Maria stared out at the ocean and tried to find the courage to do what she believed was right. even though every instinct in her body screamed against it. "I love you so much, mi corazón," she whispered into Sophia's hair. "More than all the stars in the sky, more than all the fish in the ocean. Do you know that?" Sophia stirred and looked up at her with sleepy eyes. "I love you too, Mommy. Forever and always." The words hung between them in the cooling evening air, a promise and a goodbye, and a prayer, all wrapped into one perfect moment that Maria knew she would carry with her into whatever came next. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the police station parking lot as Officer Miguel Martinez adjusted his duty belt and opened the back door of his patrol unit. A beautiful German shepherd with intelligent amber eyes and a glossy black and tan coat immediately perked up, her tail wagging in controlled excitement that spoke of professional discipline mixed with genuine affection. "Ready for another shift, partner?" Martinez asked, running his hand along Bella's head in their familiar pre-patrol ritual. She responded with a soft woof and the kind of focused attention that had made her one of the most respected canine officers in the county. 3 years, that's how long they had been working together, and in that time, Bella had become more than just his partner, thing that kept him grounded when the job threatened to overwhelm him. She had an uncanny ability to read not just situations, but people, sensing danger and distress in ways that often defied explanation. Martinez remembered the day they had first been paired together. Bella had been 18 months old, fresh out of training, all energy and intelligence, with an almost supernatural intuition for human emotions. He had been skeptical at first. He was more of a cat person, if he was honest. But Bella had won him over within hours. She seemed to understand that he was carrying grief like a physical weight, and she had positioned herself as his emotional support as much as his professional partner. As they pulled out of the station parking lot, Martinez caught sight of his reflection in the rearview mirror. At 32, he looked older than his years, the stress of single parenthood and loss etched in the lines around his eyes. His black hair was starting to show threads of gray at the temples, and his once easy smile now required more effort than it used to. Carmen had been gone for 2 years, but the pain still hit him at unexpected moments. When he heard a song on the radio that she used to sing while cooking, when Isabella laughed in a way that reminded him of her mother, when he rolled over in bed and reached for someone who would never be there again. Pancreatic cancer, the same disease that had claimed Carmen at 29, had taken her so quickly that they barely had time to say goodbye. 8-year-old Isabella was waiting for him at home with his mother, Elena, probably doing homework at the kitchen table, while Abuela made her famous pozole. Isabella looked so much like Carmen. The same warm brown eyes, the same stubborn streak, the same way of tilting her head when she was thinking hard about something. Some days, looking at his daughter was like seeing his wife all over again. A bittersweet reminder of what they had lost and what they still had to protect. Bella seemed to sense his mood shift, as she always did. She moved closer to the partition between the front and back seats, pressing her nose against the metal mesh in a gesture of comfort that never failed to ground him. She had been there through the worst of his grief, through the nights when he couldn't sleep, through the moments when the weight of raising Isabella alone felt impossible to bear. "Thanks, girl," he murmured, reaching back to touch her nose through the mesh. "I'm okay. Just thinking." Their evening patrol route was familiar and usually peaceful. They covered the residential neighborhoods on the east side of town, the commercial district near the harbor, and the scenic coastal areas where tourists sometimes needed assistance, or locals walked their dogs. The coastal roads were Martinez's favorite part of the shift. Something about the ocean air and the endless horizon helped clear his head and remind him that there was beauty in the world, despite all its pain. Bella loved the coastal patrol too, though for different reasons. She would stand in the back of the patrol car, nose pressed to the window, watching for wildlife, and occasionally barking at seagulls with professional disapproval. The cliffs and overlooks along their route were popular spots for photographers and couples, but they also required regular safety checks. People sometimes got too close to the edges for dramatic photos, or teenagers would dare each other to climb on the barriers. Martinez had responded to 2 calls at the cliffs in the past year. Both times, Bella had been instrumental in helping locate missing hikers who had wandered off marked trails. She had an incredible nose and an even more incredible ability to sense when someone was in genuine distress versus just being careless. More than once, her instincts had led them to people who needed help before anyone even knew they were missing. "You know what, Bella?" Martinez said, as they turned onto Ocean View Drive, the main coastal road that would take them past several scenic overlooks. "Isabella asked me yesterday if we could get a dog. I told her we already have the best dog in the world, but she only gets to visit on weekends." Bella's tail wagged at the mention of Isabella's name. The two had formed an immediate bond when Martinez first brought his partner home to meet his daughter. Isabella would spend hours teaching Bella tricks that had nothing to do with police work: how to shake hands, how to play dead, how to speak on command. Bella tolerated these sessions with the patience of a saint, and what Martinez swore was amusement. The radio crackled with routine calls: a fender bender downtown, a noise complaint in the university district, a request for extra patrol around the high school, where someone had reported suspicious activity that turned out to be the janitor working late. Normal evening shift stuff that kept them busy but not stressed. Martinez felt some of the tension leave his shoulders as they drove along the familiar route. This was good work, important work, and having Bella beside him made it feel like they were making a real difference in their community. She reminded him daily that there was still good in the world, still people worth protecting, still reasons to keep fighting, even when everything felt impossible. "All right, partner," he said as they approached the first scenic overlook of their patrol. "Let's make sure everyone's staying safe out there." The first sign that something was wrong came as they crested the hill overlooking Sunset Point, the most popular of the coastal viewing areas. Bella, who had been sitting calmly in the back seat, suddenly stood up and pressed herself against the window, her entire body rigid with alertness. Martinez glanced in the rearview mirror, expecting to see her usual interest in seabirds or maybe a deer that had wandered down from the hills. Instead, he saw something that made his stomach tighten with concern. Bella's ears were pinned forward, her mouth slightly open in concentration, and her amber eyes were locked on something in the distance with an intensity he had rarely seen. "What is it, girl?" he asked, slowing the patrol car and scanning the area ahead of them. The overlook appeared normal: a few parked cars, the usual scatter of tourists taking sunset photos. But Bella's behavior was anything but normal. She began to whine, a low, urgent sound that started deep in her chest and built to an almost desperate pitch. Martinez had heard Bella make a lot of sounds in their 3 years together: barks of excitement, growls of warning, the satisfied huffs she made when she successfully completed a task. But he had never heard her whine like this. It was the sound of an animal in distress, but not physical distress. This was something else entirely. As they passed the main overlook and continued along the coastal road, Bella's agitation only increased. She began pacing in the confined space of the back seat, moving from one window to the other, her claws clicking against the metal floor of the unit. The whining became more insistent, punctuated by sharp barks that seemed to demand his attention. Okay, I hear you," Martinez said, pulling over to the shoulder and turning to look at his partner. Bella was now pawing frantically at the window closest to the ocean, her breathing rapid and shallow. Her tail wasn't wagging, it was held stiff and high, the way it got when she sensed immediate danger. Martinez had learned to trust Bella's instincts completely. In their time together, she had alerted him to everything from gas leaks that humans couldn't smell to domestic violence situations where her ability to read body language and stress hormones had given them crucial early warnings. She had found lost children, detected drugs that were hidden beyond the reach of human senses, and once, memorably, had refused to let him enter a building that collapsed 20 minutes later due to structural damage no one else had detected. But this was different. This wasn't her usual focused alertness when she detected something specific. This was panic, pure and simple, and Martinez had never seen her panic before. Not when they had been shot at during a drug raid, not during the earthquake 2 years ago when buildings were swaying and car alarms were screaming, not even during the wildfire evacuation when the air was thick with smoke and ash. "What's got you so worked up?" he asked, getting out of the car and opening her door. Bella immediately jumped down, but instead of waiting for his command, as she had been trained to do, she took off running toward the cliff area. They had never given him a false alarm, never led him astray, never failed to find what she was looking for when she set her mind to it. The coastal wind whipped around them as they jogged back toward the overlook area. Bella was 20 yards ahead, moving with the focused intensity of a working dog on a mission. She kept looking back to make sure he was following, then would bark again and continue toward whatever had triggered her alarm. As they got closer to the scenic area, Martinez began to scan more carefully. There were fewer people now. Most of the casual tourists had headed home for dinner, leaving only a handful of cars in the small parking area. He could see a couple taking selfies near the main viewing platform, an elderly man sitting on one of the benches reading a book, and Bella's barking became more urgent, more desperate. She was running in a wide circle now, her nose to the ground, then lifting to test the air, then back down again. Whatever she was tracking, it was definitely human, and it was definitely in distress. "Dispatch, this is Unit 47, Martinez said into his radio, keeping his voice calm and professional. "I'm at the Sunset Point Overlook investigating a possible situation. My canine is indicating a problem, but I don't have visual confirmation yet. Requesting backup to the area as a precaution." "Copy, Unit 47, backup en route. ETA approximately 8 minutes. 8 minutes. Martinez hoped that would be fast enough for whatever Bella had detected. She was now barking continuously, a sharp, urgent sound that seemed to echo off the cliffs and carry on the ocean wind. Other people in the area were starting to notice, turning to look at the police dog with expressions ranging from curiosity to concern. Martinez quickened his pace, following Bella as she led him away from the main tourist area toward a more secluded section of the cliff. His training kicked in. Scan for threats, identify exits, assess the situation from multiple angles. Whatever was happening, Bella believed it was serious enough to risk breaking protocol and disobeying her training. And if Bella thought it was serious, Martinez knew it was life or death. Following Bella's frantic lead, Martinez rounded a bend in the coastal path and immediately understood why his partner had been in such distress. About 50 yards ahead, on a grassy area near the cliff edge, he could see two figures, a woman and a small child, in what his police training immediately recognized as a potentially dangerous situation. The woman was sitting on a blanket with the child in her lap, But something about her posture set off every alarm bell in Martinez's mind. Her shoulders were hunched in defeat, her head tilted down in a way that spoke of complete despair. More concerning was her position relative to the cliff edge, close enough that a few steps would put them in serious. Stopped barking, but was now moving in agitated circles, her nose alternating between the ground and the air, as she processed scents and emotions that Martinez could only guess at. Her entire body language screamed urgency and distress, confirming his growing suspicion that they had stumbled onto something far more serious than a family enjoying the sunset. Martinez activated his radio again, keeping his voice low. "Dispatch, Unit 47. I have visual on 2 individuals near the cliff edge, requesting immediate backup and possibly a crisis negotiator. Will approach with caution." "Copy, Unit 47. Additional units dispatched. ETA now 5 minutes. Through his binoculars, Martinez could see more details that made his stomach tighten with recognition and dread. The woman appeared to be young, maybe mid-20s, with dark hair and clothing that suggested she wasn't wealthy. The child looked to be around 5 or 6 years old, about Isabella's age when Carmen had first gotten sick. They had a small bag with them and what looked like a picnic blanket, but the woman's body language was all wrong for a casual family outing. Martinez had responded to suicide calls before. He knew the signs, the defeated posture, the isolated location, the careful positioning near the edge of danger. But this was different. This involved a child, which changed everything. His mind raced through protocols for crisis intervention, involving minors, but his heart was already breaking for what he suspected he was about to confront. The child, a little girl, seemed to be playing innocently, unaware of any danger. She was moving around on the blanket, occasionally standing up to pick flowers or chase something only she could see. Her laughter carried on the ocean breeze, a sound so pure and joyful that it made the contrast with her mother's obvious despair even more heartbreaking. Bella whined softly and looked up at Martinez with eyes that seemed to plead for action. She understood, as she always did, that people were in trouble and needed help. Her training told her to wait for commands, but her instincts as a protector were clearly struggling against the restraint. "Easy, girl," Martinez murmured, his hand briefly touching her head for comfort, his own as much as hers. "We're going to help them, but we have to be careful." He began moving slowly along the cliff path, staying low and trying to approach from an angle that wouldn't startle the woman or child. His mind was already working through crisis negotiation techniques, but a part of him was also remembering his own darkest moments after Carmen's death. The nights when the pain had been so overwhelming that he had wondered if Isabella would be better off without a father who could barely function. The mornings when getting out of bed had felt impossible, when the future had seemed like nothing but endless suffering. He understood despair in a way that he hoped would help him connect with this woman. Understanding wasn't always enough. Sometimes people reached a point where logic and reason couldn't penetrate the wall of pain they had built around themselves. The little girl looked up from her flower picking and noticed Bella first. Her face lit up with the instant joy that children reserve for animals, and she took a step toward them before her mother's sharp voice stopped her. "Sophia, no! Stay here with Mommy!" The woman had spotted Martinez and Bella, and her reaction confirmed his worst fears. She pulled the child closer to her body in a protective gesture that was also possessive, her eyes wide with the look of someone whose plans had been interrupted. This wasn't a casual family outing that had wandered too close to the edge. This was exactly what he had feared it was. Martinez raised his hands in the universal gesture of non-threat, his voice carrying the calm, non-confrontational tone he had learned in crisis training. Hello there, I'm Officer Martinez, and this is my partner Bella. We were just checking on folks in the area, making sure everyone's staying safe. Bella, sensing the delicate nature of the situation, had stopped her agitated pacing and was now sitting calmly at Martinez's side. But her attention remained completely focused on the woman and child, her amber eyes alert and concerned. The standoff had begun. Martinez could see backup units in the distance, their lights off to avoid escalating the situation, positioning themselves to provide support without adding pressure. But for now, it was just him, Bella, and two people whose lives hung in the balance of the next few minutes. The little girl, Sophia, was looking between the adults with growing confusion, not understanding the tension, but sensing that something important was happening. Her innocence was both heartbreaking and potentially life-saving. Children had a way of cutting through adult complexity with simple truths that could sometimes reach people when nothing else could. Martinez took a deep breath and prepared to do the most important work of his career, not just as a police officer, but as a fellow human being who understood the weight of despair and the power of hope, even in the darkest moments. "Beautiful evening for watching the sunset," he said gently, taking a small step forward. "Mind if we join you?" Martinez kept his movements deliberately slow and non-threatening as he approached the blanket where Maria and Sophia sat. His hands remained visible at his sides, his voice pitched low and calm, drawing on every technique he had learned in crisis negotiation training. The ocean breeze carried the salt scent of the waves below and the sweet fragrance of the wildflowers Sophia had been picking, creating an almost surreal contrast to the gravity of the situation. "Making sure everyone along the coast is having a good time." Bella remained perfectly still beside him, her intelligent amber eyes taking in every detail of the scene. Martinez could feel the tension radiating from her body. She wanted to help, knew that help was needed, but her training kept her disciplined and calm. Her presence was somehow both professional and comforting, exactly what the situation required. Sophia's reaction was immediate and predictable. At 5 years old, she had no concept of the dangerous undercurrents swirling around her mother's decision. All she saw was the most beautiful dog she had ever encountered, with glossy black and tan fur and kind eyes that seemed to be looking directly at her. "Mommy, look, it's a police doggy," Sophia's voice bubbled with excitement as she pointed at Bella. "She's so pretty. Can I pet her? Please. I promise I'll be gentle." But Maria's reaction was the complete opposite. The moment she saw Martinez's uniform, understood that their isolated spot had been discovered, her entire body went rigid with panic and desperation. Her carefully laid plans, the perfect day she had created, the peaceful ending she had envisioned, all of it was crumbling around her. "No!" Maria's voice cracked with emotion as she pulled Sophia closer to her body. "Stay away from us. We're not doing anything wrong. We're just watching the sunset." Martinez could see the terror in Maria's eyes, but it wasn't fear of him or Bella. It was the terror of someone whose last desperate hope was being threatened, someone who saw their final solution slipping away. He recognized that look. He had seen it in the mirror during his darkest nights after Carmen's death, when the pain had been so overwhelming that any escape seemed preferable to continuing to fight. "That's okay," Martinez said softly, stopping about 10 feet away from their blanket. "You're absolutely right. There's nothing wrong with watching the sunset. It's one of the most beautiful spots on the whole coast. Mind if we watch with you? Bella loves sunsets, don't you, girl?" At the sound of her name, Bella's tail gave a small, controlled wag. She remained in her sitting position, but tilted her head slightly. a gesture that somehow made her seem less like a working police dog and more like a friendly family pet. Sophia's eyes lit up with delight. She understands you. Is she really, really smart? The smartest partner I've ever had, Martinez replied, deliberately focusing his attention on Sophia rather than Maria. His training had taught him that in crisis situations involving children, sometimes the best approach was to work through the child's natural trust and innocence. She can do all sorts of amazing things. She helps people, finds lost things, and she's excellent at making new friends. Maria's grip on Sophia tightened, and Martinez could see as an interruption to their final moments together. But she was also a mother who had spent 5 years teaching Sophia to be polite to adults, especially police officers. "We should go," Maria said, her voice shaky and uncertain. "It's getting late, and we have somewhere else to be." But Sophia had no intention of leaving before meeting the beautiful dog. "But, Mommy, you said we were going to watch the whole sunset. And look, it's just starting to get really pretty colors." She was right. The sun was beginning its descent toward the horizon, painting the sky in soft shades of pink and orange that would soon deepen into the brilliant display they had come to see. Martinez realized that time was both his ally and his enemy. The approaching darkness might make Maria feel more urgent about her plans, but it also meant they had a natural reason to stay and talk. "Sophia's right," Martinez said gently. "The sunset from this spot is supposed to be spectacular. I've been wanting to see it myself, but I never seem to time my patrol right." He paused, then added with careful casualness, "I have a little girl about Sophia's age at home. She loves sunsets too." The mention of his daughter was calculated but genuine. Martinez wanted Maria to see him as more than just a police officer. He wanted her to see him as a father who understood the fierce love that could drive someone to desperate measures. Maria's eyes darted between Martinez, Bella, and the cliff edge, her mind clearly racing through options and calculations. Martinez could practically see her weighing whether to try to complete her original plan despite his presence, whether to try to leave and find another location, or whether to trust that his intentions were genuinely helpful rather than harmful. Bella seemed to sense the crucial nature of the moment. Without any command from Martinez, she slowly lowered herself into a lying position, making herself appear as non-threatening as possible, while keeping her attention focused on both Maria and Sophia. Her body language was perfectly calibrated, alert enough to respond if needed, relaxed enough to seem safe. "She wants to be friends," Sophia observed, with the matter-of-fact wisdom that children possess. "Look how she's looking at me, Mommy. I think she likes me." And despite everything, despite her despair, her plans, her conviction that this was the only way to protect her daughter, Maria felt a tiny crack appear in the wall of certainty she had built around her decision. Before Maria could be drawn by the magnetic pull that exists between children and gentle animals. Bella remained perfectly still as Sophia approached, her training evident in every controlled breath. But there was something more than professional discipline in her posture. There was genuine warmth, a recognition of innocence that needed protection. When Sophia's small hand finally made contact with her fur, Bella's tail began a slow, careful wag that spoke of joy held in check. "Oh my goodness, she's so soft," Sophia exclaimed, her voice filled with wonder. "And her ears are so big. Hi, Bella, I'm Sophia. This is Luna." She held up her stuffed tiger for Bella to see. "She's my new friend from the zoo." Martinez watched the interaction with careful attention, noting how Bella seemed to understand the delicate nature of the situation. She accepted Sophia's petting with gentle patience, but her eyes remained alert, occasionally flicking toward Maria and then back to the child in her care. "Can she do tricks?" Sophia asked, looking up at Martinez with the kind of complete trust that only children possess. "My friend Emma has a dog named Rusty who can shake hands and roll over and play dead. Can Bella do those things too?" "She can do lots of tricks," Martinez replied, kneeling down to Sophia's level while keeping a respectful distance from Maria. "But her favorite thing is helping people. She's what we call a working dog. She has a very important job, keeping people safe." Sophia's eyes widened with admiration. "Like a superhero dog?" "Exactly like a superhero dog." Martinez smiled, genuinely charmed by her perspective. "She can find people who are lost, and she can tell when someone needs help. And she's very good at making people feel better when they're sad." At the word sad, Sophia's expression grew more serious, and she glanced back toward her mother. "Mommy's been sad a lot lately," she confided, in the matter-of-fact way that children share important information. "I try to make her happy, but sometimes she cries when she thinks I'm not looking." Maria's face crumpled at her daughter's innocent observation, and Martinez saw the moment when her carefully constructed composure began to crack. Her hands were shaking as she reached toward Sophia, torn between wanting to pull her away from this disruption to their final evening and being unable to deny her daughter's simple joy in meeting Bella. "Sophia, baby, come back to Mommy," Maria pleaded, her voice thick with tears she was trying desperately to control. We should." But Sophia was enchanted by Bella's presence and Martinez's gentle attention. "Why are you a police officer?" she asked him with the direct curiosity of childhood. "Do you catch bad guys? Do you have a gun? My teacher says police officers are helpers." "Your teacher is very smart," Martinez replied. "We are helpers, and yes, sometimes we catch bad guys, but anyone who might need us." His words were chosen carefully, a message intended as much for Maria as for Sophia. He could see that Maria was listening even as she struggled with her own emotional breakdown. Her eyes were red with unshed tears, and her breathing was becoming increasingly shallow and rapid. Bella seemed to sense the shift in emotional energy. Without any command, she moved closer to Sophia and gently licked the little girl's hand. Sophia giggled with pure delight, the sound echoing off the cliffs and mixing with the constant rhythm of the waves below. "She likes me," Sophia announced. "Look, Mommy, she's giving me kisses." The sight of her daughter's happiness, genuine, uncomplicated joy in the midst of what Maria had planned to be their final hour together, hit her like a physical blow. How could she take this away? How could she steal these moments of pure childhood wonder and replace them with darkness? But then the reality of their situation crashed back over her. The cancer, the money, the impossible future that awaited Sophia without her protection. The brief moment of doubt vanished under the weight of her despair. "Sophia, please." Maria's voice broke completely now, tears streaming down her face. "Please come back to Mommy. We have things we need to do." Martinez recognized the desperation in her voice, the sound of someone whose carefully laid plans were unraveling, but who still felt trapped by the circumstances that had led to those plans. He knew he needed to act quickly, before Maria's panic overrode her maternal instincts. "Hey, it's okay," he said softly, his voice carrying the kind of calm authority that came from years of crisis work. "Whatever's going on, whatever brought you here tonight, You don't have to face it alone. That's what Bella and I are here for, to help families figure things out. Sophia looked between her mother's tears and Martinez's gentle face, her 5-year-old mind trying to process the adult emotions swirling around her. Bella remained close to her side, a steady, comforting presence that seemed to anchor the child in the midst of confusion she couldn't understand. The crack in Maria's resolve was widening, and Martinez could see that she was fighting a war between her desperate plans and her natural instinct to trust someone who was offering help. The next few minutes would determine whether that crack became a doorway to hope, or whether despair would win the battle for her soul. Martinez could see that Maria was fighting a losing battle against her own emotions. The sight of Sophia's innocent joy with Bella, combined with the stress of having her private moment interrupted, was breaking down the walls she had built around her desperate decision. Her breathing was becoming more labored, her hands shaking as she clutched at the blanket beneath her. "Maria," Martinez said gently. Using her name for the first time, Sophia had inadvertently mother being sad. "Can you tell me what's brought you here tonight? What's making you feel so overwhelmed?" The simple question, asked with genuine concern rather than official authority, seemed to shatter something inside her. Maria looked at her daughter, still happily petting Bella and whispering secrets into the dog's attentive ears, and then at Martinez's kind, patient face, and the whole terrible story came pouring out of her like water through a broken dam. "I'm dying," she sobbed, the words torn from her throat with raw desperation. "I have cancer, stage 4 pancreatic cancer, and the doctors say I have maybe 6 months, maybe less. And I don't have any money for treatment, and I don't have any family. And when I die, Sophia will have no one." The words hung in the evening air, like a physical presence, heavy with pain and finality. Martinez felt his own chest tighten with recognition and sympathy. He knew intimately the terror of facing a future where cancer might steal away everything that mattered most. "I can't leave her alone," Maria continued, her voice breaking with each word. "I grew up in foster care. I know what happens to kids like Sophia, kids who don't have anyone to protect them. They get shuffled around and ignored and hurt, and nobody cares because they're just numbers in the system." Sophia looked up from her conversation with Bella, her face creased with concern, as she registered her mother's distress. "Mommy, why are you crying? Are you sad about something?" The innocent question nearly destroyed what little composure Maria had left. She reached for Sophia with trembling hands, pulling her daughter close and trying to memorize the feeling of her warm, solid presence. "I'm okay, baby," Maria lied, her voice thick with tears.
Sophia was too perceptive to be fooled entirely. "Are you sick, Mommy? Is that why you've been so tired?"
Martinez watched this exchange with a heart that was breaking for both mother and daughter. He recognized Maria's pain, not just professionally, but personally. He remembered sitting in similar hospital rooms, having similar conversations with doctors, facing the same terrible uncertainty about what would happen to his child if the worst came to pass. "Maria," he said quietly, "I lost my wife to cancer 2 years ago. Pancreatic cancer. I know what you're going through. The fear, the desperation, the feeling that there's no way forward that doesn't end in heartbreak." Maria's eyes snapped to his face, searching for signs of false sympathy or professional manipulation. But what one wants her? Bella seemed to sense the profound sadness radiating from both adults. Without any prompting, she moved closer to Sophia and gently rested her large head against the little girl's side. Sophia immediately wrapped her arms around Bella's neck, unconsciously seeking the comfort that the dog was offering. "What's cancer?" Sophia asked, her voice small and worried. "Is it why you're always tired, Mommy?" Martinez saw Maria's face crumble at her daughter's question, saw the moment when the weight of explaining the unexplainable to a 5-year-old nearly crushed her completely. He had been in this exact position with Isabella when Carmen was dying, trying to find words that would help a child understand something that adults could barely comprehend themselves. "It's when someone's body gets very sick," Martinez said gently, stepping in when he saw that Maria couldn't find the words. "And sometimes the doctors can help fix it, and sometimes they can't. But what's most important is that people who love each other find ways to take care of each other, no matter what happens." Sophia nodded solemnly, processing this information with the serious attention that children give to important adult conversations. "Is that why you're here? To help take care of Mommy?" The innocence of the question hit both adults like a physical blow. Out of the mouths of babes came the simple truth that Maria's despair had hidden from her. Help was possible, care was available, and the solution to her impossible problem might not be as final as she had believed. "Yes," Martinez said firmly, his eyes never leaving Maria's face. "That's exactly why we're here, to help take care of both of you." Maria stared at him through her tears, wanting desperately to believe him, but afraid to hope for something that seemed impossible. "You don't understand," she whispered. "There's no money for treatment, no family to take her, no way to make this work that doesn't end with her alone and forgotten." "Maybe not," Martinez replied gently, "but there are possibilities you haven't considered yet. People who care more than you know, and resources you might not be aware of. Will you give me a chance to show you that Sophia's future doesn't have to be as dark as you're imagining?" Bella shifted closer to Sophia, and the little girl looked up at the adults with a mixture of confusion and trust. "Are we still going to watch the sunset?" she asked. "The colors are getting really pretty now." She was right. The sky had deepened into brilliant shades of orange and pink, the sun hanging low over the horizon in a display of natural beauty that seemed almost impossibly perfect for such a crucial moment. And in that beauty, surrounded by the innocence of her daughter, respectful distance from Maria and Sophia's blanket, he could see the war between hope and despair playing out across Maria's face. And he knew that this moment required complete honesty, not just professional compassion, but the raw truth of his own journey through loss. "Her name was Carmen," Martinez began, his voice soft but steady, as he gazed out over the ocean. "We met in college. She was studying to be a teacher. I was in criminal justice. She had this laugh that could light up an entire room, and she made the best tamales in 3 counties. Isabella was her whole world." Maria watched him carefully, searching his face for any sign of manipulation or false comfort. But what she saw there was genuine grief, carefully managed, but still present, the kind of pain that only came from real loss. "The diagnosis came when Isabella was 6, Martinez continued, his hands clasped loosely in his lap. "Pancreatic cancer, just like yours. The doctor used all the same words: advanced, aggressive, limited options. Carmen was 29 years old, and suddenly we were talking about months instead of decades. The parallel hit Maria like a physical blow. She could see herself in his story, could imagine the moment when his world had tilted off its axis, just as hers had in Dr. Richardson's office. "How long did you have?" she whispered. 14 months, Martinez replied. "We tried everything: surgery, chemotherapy, radiation, clinical trials. Carmen was so brave through all of it. She would sit in that chemo chair for hours, making jokes with the nurses, planning Isabella's birthday parties, talking about the garden she wanted to plant when she got better." His voice caught slightly on the word better, and Maria felt her chest tighten with recognition. She knew that particular kind of hope, desperate and defiant, and ultimately futile. The worst part wasn't watching her get sicker, Martinez said, his eyes still fixed on the horizon. The worst part was watching Isabella try to understand why her mama was disappearing a little more each day. She would bring Carmen drawings from school, would curl up next to her in bed and read her favorite books out loud, would ask me every night if Mama was going to be okay in the morning. Maria's throat closed with empathy. She had been dreading those exact conversations with Sophia, the impossible task of explaining why sometimes love wasn't enough to keep people safe. "When Carmen died, I thought about it too," Martinez said quietly, finally turning to meet Maria's eyes. "Not the same way you're thinking about it, but close enough. I couldn't see how I was supposed to keep going when everything that mattered was gone. I couldn't imagine waking up every day without her. Couldn't picture raising Isabella alone. Couldn't figure out how to be strong when I felt broken beyond repair." The admission hung between them like Maria found herself leaning forward slightly, drawn by the recognition of her own darkest thoughts, reflected in his words. "What stopped you?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Martinez reached for his wallet and pulled out a worn photograph. A little girl, with Carmen's warm brown eyes and his stubborn chin, grinning at the camera with 2 missing front teeth. "Isabella stopped me," he said simply. "Not because she said anything profound, or because she needed me in some obvious way. She stopped me because one morning, about a month after Carmen died, I found her in the kitchen, trying to make breakfast for both of us. She was standing on a chair trying to scramble eggs, and she had gotten eggshells in the pan and flour all over the counter, but she was so proud of herself for taking care of us." Maria looked at the photograph and saw Sophia in Isabella's bright smile, saw herself in the fierce love that had driven a grieving child to try to feed her surviving parent. She said, "Daddy, I made us breakfast, so you don't have to be sad today." Martinez continued, his voice thick with emotion. "And I realized that while I was drowning in grief, she was drowning too, but she was still trying to save both of us. Children are incredibly resilient, Maria, but they're also incredibly brave. They don't give up on love, even when love hurts them." The photograph trembled in Maria's hands as she studied Isabella's face. "But what about when you're gone too? What happens to her then?" "That's what I thought about every day for months," Martinez admitted. "I was so focused on all the ways I might fail her, all the things that could go wrong, all the reasons why she'd be better off with someone else. But children don't need perfect parents, Maria. They need parents who love them enough to keep fighting, even when fighting feels impossible." He took the photograph back and looked at it with the tender expression that fathers reserved for their daughters. Isabella is 8 now. She still misses her mama every day, but she's also happy, and funny and smart, and kind. She has friends and hobbies and dreams about the future. She's not broken by what we lost. She's stronger because of how much love we had. Maria felt something shift inside her chest, a small crack in the wall of certainty she had built around her desperate decision. "But the foster system doesn't have to be Sophia's only option," Martinez interrupted gently. "There are people who care, Maria. More people than you know. And there are possibilities you haven't considered yet. Solutions that might not be perfect, but could be filled with love. The sun had sunk lower while they talked, painting everything in soft golden light that made even the most painful conversations feel touched by grace. Maria looked at the photograph one more time. Her diagnosis. She allowed herself to imagine a future where Sophia's story didn't end with her mother's, while the adults shared their stories of loss and hope. Sophia had curled up against Bella's side, her small hands buried deep in the dog's thick fur. What had started as simple petting had evolved into something deeper, a connection that transcended the barrier between human and animal, built on the kind of intuitive understanding that children and dogs seemed to share naturally. Bella had positioned herself carefully, creating a warm shelter for Sophia with her body, while maintaining a clear view of both the child and the adults nearby. Her training as a police dog had taught her to assess threats and protect people. But this felt different. This wasn't professional duty. This was personal care. The kind of fierce protectiveness that came from recognizing innocence that needed safeguarding. "You're really soft," Sophia whispered to Bella, her voice barely audible over the sound of the waves below. Softer than Luna, even. She held up her stuffed tiger for comparison, pressing the toy against Bella's fur. "See? You're much more cuddly." Bella responded with a gentle rumble deep in her chest. Not quite a growl, but more than a sigh. A sound that seemed to acknowledge Sophia's trust and return it in kind. Her amber eyes remained alert, but her body language was completely relaxed, inviting Sophia to lean deeper into her warmth. "My mommy is really sad," Sophia confided, her voice taking on the serious tone that children used when sharing important secrets. "She tries to hide it, but I can tell. She cries sometimes when she thinks I'm sleeping, and she hugs me extra tight when she thinks I'm not paying attention." Bella's ears twitched forward, as if she were listening to every word with the careful attention of a trained counselor. She shifted slightly, adjusting her position so that Sophia could nestle more comfortably against her side. "I try to make her happy," Sophia continued, her small fingers tracing patterns in Bella's fur. "I draw her pictures and tell her jokes and help her with the dishes, but nothing works. She's still sad all the time." "Do you think it's because of me?" The question broke Martinez's concentration on his conversation with Maria. He glanced over to see Sophia's worried face pressed against Bella's neck, her expression carrying the kind of guilt that children often shouldered when the adults in their lives were struggling. Bella seemed to sense Sophia's distress. She turned her head and gently licked Sophia's cheek, a gesture so tender and deliberate that it looked almost human in its compassion. Then she pressed her nose against Sophia's forehead in what could only be described as a kiss. "Oh!" Sophia giggled despite her worries. "You're giving me puppy kisses. That tickles." But Bella wasn't finished. Warmth and safety. Her head rested near Sophia's shoulder, and she began to make soft, rhythmic sounds, not quite whining, but something like singing, a gentle, canine lullaby. "Are you singing to me?" Sophia asked in wonder. "That's so pretty. My mommy used to sing to me when I was little, but she's too tired now." Maria caught the end of Sophia's comment and felt her heart crack a little more. How many small losses had she failed to notice while consumed by her own grief? How many moments of her daughter's childhood had slipped by while she struggled with her diagnosis? But Martinez was watching the interaction between Sophia and Bella with something approaching awe. In his 3 years partnering with Bella, he had seen her work with children before. She was naturally gentle and patient with young people. But this was different. This wasn't just professional courtesy. This was genuine affection, the kind of bond that formed when two souls recognized something special in each other. "Look at that," he said quietly to Maria, nodding towards Sophia and Bella. "I've never seen her respond to someone like that before." Sophia had begun telling Bella about her day, about the zoo and the butterfly pancakes and the cotton candy that had turned her tongue pink. Bella listened to every word with the grave attention of a best friend, occasionally nuzzling Sophia when she paused, or licking her hand when she laughed. "And we saw elephants holding hands with their trunks," Sophia was saying, using her own hands to demonstrate, "just like me and Mommy do. And there were butterflies that looked like flying flowers, and a monkey who made funny faces at me." As Sophia talked, some of the worry lines around her eyes began to fade. The simple act of sharing her excitement with someone who seemed genuinely interested was working magic on her small spirit. Bella's presence was like a warm blanket wrapped around her anxiety, making everything feel safer and more manageable. "I wish you could come home with us," Sophia whispered into Bella's ear. "Then Mommy wouldn't be so sad, because you make everyone feel better, and we could play together, and I could teach you tricks, and you could sleep in my bed and keep the scary dreams away." Bella's tail gave a small wag at Sophia's words, and she shifted position again, somehow managing to encompass even more of the little girl in her protective embrace. It was as if she understood not just Sophia's words, but the deeper need they represented, the need for security, for comfort, for someone who would stay and protect her no matter what. Maria watched this interaction with growing amazement. She had been so focused on protecting Sophia from future pain that she had forgotten how resilient her daughter could be, how quickly she could form bonds that brought joy even in difficult circumstances.
Recent weeks, the bond between child and dog was becoming something profound and unbreakable, a connection that seemed to promise that even in the darkest moments there could still be light, still be love, still be reasons to hope for tomorrow. As the sun continued its descent toward the horizon, painting the entire scene in warm, amber light, Martinez found himself sharing stories he rarely told. Stories of triumph that had emerged from tragedy, of families who had found ways to survive and even thrive in the face of impossible circumstances. "After Carmen died, I thought my purpose died with her," Martinez said, his voice gaining strength as he spoke. "I went through the motions of work, of taking care of Isabella, of living, but everything felt empty. It wasn't until I started really paying attention to the families I encountered on patrol that I began to understand something important." Maria was listening intently now, Sophia's peaceful breathing against Bella's side, providing a soundtrack of innocence to their conversation. The sight of her daughter so calm and safe in the protection of the gentle police dog was working some kind of magic on her defensive walls. "There was this family I met about 6 months after Carmen passed," Martinez continued. "Single father with 3 kids, living in their car because he'd lost his job when his wife left. The kids were Isabella's age and younger, and they were scared and hungry, but they weren't broken. You know what the oldest one said to me when I asked how they were doing." Maria shook her head, drawn into his story despite herself. "She said, 'We're okay because we have each other, and Daddy says that's the most important thing.' 8 years old, living in a car, and she understood something that took me months to figure out, that love doesn't disappear when life gets hard. It just becomes more important."
Martinez pulled out his phone and showed Maria a picture from the previous Christmas. Isabella grinning beside a beautifully decorated tree, surrounded by wrapped presents, with Bella wearing a ridiculous holiday sweater. This is Isabella now, happy, healthy, excited about the future. She still talks about her mama every day, but she doesn't live in fear of what we lost. She lives in gratitude for what we still have. But how? Maria whispered, her voice thick with longing. How do you get from the darkness to that? She gestured at the photograph, at the obvious joy radiating from Isabella's smile. One day at a time, Martinez replied simply, and with help from people who care. After having grandchildren nearby. About Father Rodriguez from the local church, who had organized a support group for single parents and made sure they all had each other's phone numbers. About the teachers at Isabella's school who had quietly arranged for extra help and understanding during the difficult months. I'm not saying it was easy, Martinez continued. There were days when getting out of bed felt impossible, when I was sure I was failing Isabella in every possible way. But every time I was ready to give up, someone would appear, a neighbor, a colleague, sometimes even a stranger, and remind me that we weren't alone. Sophia stirred against Bella's side, mumbling something in her sleep about elephants and ice cream. The sound made both adults smile, the first genuine moment of lightness they had shared since meeting. She's so beautiful, Martinez said, watching Sophia sleep, and so trusting. Look how she's sleeping against Bella. She knows somehow that she's safe. Children have an instinct for recognizing protectors, Maria. They can sense who will fight for them. Maria's eyes filled with tears as she watched her daughter sleep so peacefully in the protection of a dog she had met only hours ago. I've been so afraid that she would end up with people who didn't really want her, people who would see her as a burden instead of a gift. There are people like that in the world, Martinez acknowledged, but there are also people like my mother, who lights up every time Isabella walks in the room. People like Father Rodriguez, who asks about her grades and remembers her dance recitals. People like Mrs. Chen, who knits her sweaters because she thinks Isabella gets cold walking to school. He paused, watching as Bella shifted slightly to accommodate Sophia's changing position, never letting the child feel unsupported even in sleep. People like Bella here, who met Sophia 30 minutes ago and is already prepared to protect her with her life. The truth of his words hit Maria like a revelation. She had been so focused on all the ways the world could hurt Sophia that she had forgotten all the ways it could love her. She had been so afraid of the wrong people that she had closed herself off from the possibility of the right people. What if I'm too sick to make good decisions for her? Maria asked, voicing one of her deepest fears. What if the cancer affects my judgment, or I don't have enough time to find the right people? Then you trust the people who love both of you to help make those decisions, Martinez replied gently. You don't have to figure everything out alone, Maria, and you don't have to solve with sleep. Were you keeping me safe while I was dreaming? Bella's tail wagged gently, and she licked Sophia's forehead in what could only be interpreted as a yes. In that simple exchange, child trusting animal, animal accepting responsibility, Maria saw a glimpse of the future Martinez was describing. A future where Sophia was surrounded by protectors, where love came from unexpected places, where being alone wasn't the only alternative to being together. For the first time since her diagnosis, she allowed herself to imagine Sophia growing up, not just surviving, but thriving, surrounded by people who chose to love her because she was worth loving. The sky had deepened into rich purples and oranges when Martinez began to gently probe the truth of Maria's situation. Sophia slept peacefully, curled against Bella's side, the German shepherd's amber eyes scanning the darkening beach with quiet vigilance. "Do you have a support system?" Martinez asked, voice calm and non-judgmental. Maria let out a bitter laugh. "What support system? I moved here 3 years ago because rent was cheaper. I worked double shifts at Murphy's Diner to cover daycare and the apartment. No family, no friends close enough to lean on. Sophia's father's family cut us off the day he left. My parents died in a car accident when I was 18, no siblings. The only family I had after that were foster families, and they taught me not to expect kindness." Martinez absorbed the weight of her words. "What about your employer, medical leave?" "They were sympathetic," Maria said, "but I'm part-time, no insurance. Even if I had it, experimental treatments cost hundreds of thousands. Maybe I could raise a few thousand on GoFundMe, but—" She trailed off, shame and resignation in her voice. Martinez began listing possible resources: community assistance, church funds, medical social workers, but Maria's face closed. "I won't be a charity case. Sophia's not going to grow up thinking her mother was a burden." "Maria," Martinez said firmly, "asking for help isn't weakness. When my wife Carmen was sick, I used every resource I could find. It didn't make me less of a father. It made me one who fought for his family." Bella shifted, tightening her circle around Sophia. Martinez nodded toward the dog. "Look at Bella. She didn't know Sophia before tonight, but she's decided she's worth protecting. People in your community would see the same thing." Maria's voice dropped. "What if I make the wrong choices? What if my judgment's clouded and I put her in danger?" "Then you don't make those choices alone," Martinez replied. "You build a team, layers of protection. You don't have to be the only person between Sophia and the world." It was a foreign idea to someone who had survived by relying only on herself. But as Maria watched her daughter sleep, she began to wonder if her independence had been a shield that also kept out safety. "I don't know where to start," she admitted, "or who to trust." "You start by letting people prove themselves," Martinez said. "Most people are good. The trick is knowing the difference between those who want to help you and those who want to use you." Maria hesitated, then began to talk about her past. She was 8 when her parents died, sent into foster care while the state looked for relatives who didn't exist. Her first placement, the Hendersons, had looked perfect during inspections, until the social worker left. Then Maria became unpaid help, cooking, cleaning, caring for younger kids. When she told her social worker, Mrs. Henderson dismissed her as making up stories. From there it was a group home, overcrowded, understaffed, ruled by punishment. "I learned to be invisible," Maria said. "Never complain, never ask for help. Adults who were supposed to protect you could hurt you. And the system, it abandoned you the moment it was easier." She spoke of placements that ranged from neglectful to predatory. Foster fathers who looked at her wrong. Foster mothers who saw her as competition. Families who pocketed the stipend and left older kids to raise the younger ones. "The worst part wasn't the abuse," Maria whispered. "It was never feeling safe enough to get attached. Every time I started to hope, the social worker showed up with a new placement." Martinez's jaw tightened. "Maria, I'm so sorry. No child should live that." "And Sophia?" Maria's eyes softened on her sleeping daughter. "She's so trusting. The system would crush that in weeks." "You're right, it has problems," Martinez said carefully. "But it's not the only option. There are private guardianships, kinship placements with people you choose and trust. I've met families who've opened their homes out of love, not obligation. Maria frowned. But how do I find people like that? The same way you're getting to know me, over time, by watching how they treat others, especially children. And you can set up legal arrangements to keep a voice in Sophia's life, visits during treatment, input on major decisions. For the first time, Maria looked interested. The idea of control, of choosing love for Sophia instead of gambling on the system, was new. Martinez hesitated, then made a choice that surprised even him. My mother, Elena, lives with my daughter, Isabella. She's retired, raised 5 kids, and still has more energy than anyone I know. Our house has felt too empty since Carmen passed. Isabella's been asking for a sister. Maria's expression stilled. I'm not saying this is the answer, Martinez continued. But if you needed a safe place for Sophia while you focus on treatment, Elena would love her like family. The offer hung between them, fragile and impossible. You don't even know us, Maria whispered. Because Bella brought me here, Martinez said. Because Sophia fell asleep against my partner like they've known each other forever. Kids have instincts for safety we should trust. Tears slid down Maria's cheeks. Not the hopeless kind she'd shed for weeks, but something closer to relief. Elena would braid her hair, help with homework, make sure she never felt like a burden, Martinez added. And Bella's already decided she's part of the pack. At her name, Bella nuzzled Sophia, waking her gently. The little girl blinked up. Hi, Bella. Did I miss the sunset? Just the end, Martinez said. There will be others. Sophia sat up, still leaning into Bella. Mommy, why are you crying? Because sometimes people are so kind your heart can't hold it all, Maria said. Good crying or bad crying? Good crying. Definitely good crying. Sophia turned to Martinez, eyes bright. Can we take Bella home? Then Mommy won't be sad anymore. Martinez smiled. Bella and I work together so she can't move houses. But maybe you could visit us. Meet my family. See if you like spending time together as much as we have. Sophia's face lit with joy. Maria felt something heal and ache all at once. For the first time since her diagnosis, she could picture a goodbye that wasn't abandonment. The seeds of possibility had been planted, born from desperation, nurtured by kindness, and Maria allowed herself to believe they might grow. Sophia sat up, rubbing sleep from her eyes, and studied her mother's face in the starlight. For weeks, Maria's features had been etched with worry, but tonight something had softened. Mommy, you look different, Sophia said with the frankness only a child could have. Your face looks lighter, like when you used to smile at me. Maria's breath caught. Her daughter had been reading her pain all along. Sophia turned to Martinez. Are you a good policeman? In my storybooks, some help people, and some are mean. Which kind are you? Martinez met her gaze. Sophia nodded as if he'd passed a secret test. Then she broke both adults' hearts. I just want Mommy to be happy. I try to help. I don't ask for things. But nothing makes the sadness go away. Maria pulled her close. It's not your job to fix it. You being you is what's kept me going. Sometimes I pretend to be asleep, so you won't know I hear you crying. Sophia continued. I practice taking care of myself, making sandwiches, calling 911. So if you get sick, I can help. I'm saving my allowance for medicine. Martinez blinked back tears. Bella pressed her nose to Sophia's hand. Even the bravest people need help, Martinez said. Of the good ones. Dogs always know, right? They do, Martinez agreed, watching Bella settle protectively against her. Good, Sophia said. Because I think Mommy needs help. Even if she's scared to ask. And I think you and Bella make things better, not worse. Maria felt her daughter's words shift something deep inside her. This wasn't just about protecting Sophia from pain. It was about teaching her to accept help without shame. As stars brightened overhead, Martinez began sharing stories of the quiet heroes in his own life. Mrs. Patterson with weekly casseroles, firefighters raising money for his late wife's treatment, Sarah at the Family Resource Center connecting families to housing, jobs, and tutors. Maria listened, astonished such a network existed in the same town she'd lived in for years without knowing. "But how do you know who to trust?" she asked. "Sometimes they find you," Martinez said. Sarah had shown up at the hospital in his wife's last weeks, arranging childcare and grief counseling. Most people want to help. They just need to know how. Sarah teaches families to build a web of care, so if one person steps back, others step in. He showed her photos of his daughter, Isabella, at events where neighbors filled the pews, cheered at school fairs, and made her feel loved by many. "How do you know they're genuine?" Maria asked. "Time," Martinez said. "Genuine care is consistent. It stays when things get hard." For the first time since her diagnosis, Maria imagined Sophia's future shaped not by loss, but by belonging. The night deepened toward dawn. Sophia slept curled against Bella. Martinez sensed Maria reaching a decision. "She dreams about animals and adventures," Maria whispered. "Children can endure almost anything if they know they're loved," Martinez said. "But what if love isn't enough? What if I fail?" "Then you try again," he said gently. "You just keep fighting for her." As the sky began to lighten, Maria realized the desperate plan that had brought her to this cliff had been derailed by an officer and his dog. She pictured Sophia growing in a community that celebrated her, supported her, safe and loved. "She could have a good life, couldn't she, even without me?" "She could have an extraordinary one," Martinez said. Bella lifted her head, amber eyes steady. Maria felt an unexpected permission to hope. "I want to meet your mother," Maria said suddenly. "See Isabella, visit the community center, talk to Sarah, maybe look at treatment options." "You're sure?" Martinez asked. Maria looked at Sophia and nodded. "She deserves a chance to grow up. If people like you..." Bella's tail thumped with joy. The sun rose, turning the cliff into something like a cathedral. Maria had stepped back from the edge, choosing hope over despair, community over isolation, and Sophia's future over fear. It was both the hardest and simplest choice, to believe that love, shared freely, could change everything. As the first sunlight warmed the cliff top, Martinez stood and offered Maria his hand. She hesitated, then accepted, an unspoken acknowledgement of the help he'd given, without knowing how close she'd been to the edge. "Come on, mija," Maria said to Sophia, who reluctantly left Bella's side. "Is Bella coming with us?" "Bella goes everywhere I go," Martinez replied. The dog moved beside Sophia, forming a protective triangle. Their walk back to the patrol car felt different, every step a move into an uncertain future, terrifying but no longer hopeless. Sophia chattered, holding Bella's collar. "I think she might be magic. Are police dogs magic, Mr. Martinez?" "I think Bella's very special," he said, as his radio crackled. He confirmed to dispatch that the situation was resolved and all parties were safe. Maria settled in the front seat, watching Sophia snuggle beside Bella in back.
Tell Bella about the butterflies at the zoo, Sophia urged. Maria began describing their day as Martinez drove away, the cliff now just a scenic overlook to passers-by. But for them, the place where despair turned to hope. "Where are we going?" Maria asked. "To the station, then, if you're comfortable, my family's house." Sophia perked up. "Will they like me?" "They'll love you," Martinez said with certainty. Maria's eyes filled again, not with fear, but something gentler. "I don't understand why you're helping us. You could have just talked me down and left." Martinez glanced at her. "Bella doesn't make mistakes about people who need help. Maybe it's because I know what it's like to think you're alone when you're not. Maybe because my daughter needs to see there are people worth protecting. Or maybe because that's just what we do. We help each other when we can." Sophia had fallen asleep against Bella, her small hand tangled in fur. "She trusts you completely," Maria said. "Children and dogs have excellent instincts," Martinez replied. At the station, officers moved in the rhythm of shift change. Martinez led them through the maze of desks, Bella trotting proudly. Sophia whispered, "Do you catch bad guys here?" "Sometimes," Martinez smiled, "but mostly we help people solve problems." He settled them in a quiet corner, brought Sophia. His supervisor, Lieutenant Rodriguez, stopped by.
"Miguel, you did exactly the right thing. Whatever you need to help this family, you have my full support." Within hours, Martinez secured temporary housing, connected Maria with a medical social worker, and arranged legal and financial aid consultations. "It's not perfect," he admitted, "but it's safe, and it buys us time for better solutions." Sophia proudly handed him her drawings of Bella, for her to remember our sleepover. He accepted them like treasures. "Why are you doing all this?" Maria asked later. "My job isn't just enforcing laws. It's protecting and serving. And that means making sure a 5-year-old doesn't lose her childhood to a system not built for her." The drive to Martinez's home felt like entering a new world. Sophia clutched her artwork. Maria held her hand. The front door opened to a warm-faced woman in her 60s, Elena, and an 8-year-old girl peeking from behind her. "Welcome to our home," Elena said, enveloping them in a vanilla and coffee embrace. "You're safe now. You're with family." Sophia turned to Isabella. "You like dogs? Bella is the most wonderful dog in the world." "I love dogs. Want to see my room?" Isabella replied. In minutes, the two were chatting like old friends. Bella padded after them, tail wagging. Elena led Maria to the living room, her hands warm around Maria's. Maria found herself telling her whole story, the diagnosis, the impossible costs, her fear of leaving Sophia alone. Elena listened, then said, "When my husband died, I thought it was the end. But I learned communities take care of their own, if you let them." From the kitchen doorway, Martinez reported, "The girls are playing beautifully. Bella's supervising." Moments later, they returned, Bella now wearing a tiara. "Bella's a princess dog," Sophia announced. "We're going to be best friends," Isabella added, declaring Sophia could share her room whenever she wanted. Maria's heart swelled at her daughter's instant acceptance. Elena squeezed her hands. "This is what family looks like. Chosen, not just blood. You're choosing us, and we're choosing you." That night, Sophia fell asleep in Isabella's room, Bella lying between their beds. Maria sat in Elena's kitchen, drinking tea, and realizing she felt something she hadn't in months: safety. not just from harm, but the safety of being valued and wanted. For the first time since her diagnosis, she believed Sophia's future could be bright, that her daughter would grow up knowing she was chosen, cherished, and never, ever alone. Within a week of that night on the cliff, says you're helping a young mother and her daughter. What do they need most? By that afternoon, Elena's kitchen table had become command central. Sarah arrived with folders of resources. Mrs. Patterson from St. Matthew's Episcopal came ready to organize. First, medical expenses, Sarah said. Then stable housing, school support for Sophia, and long-term care planning. Maria sat overwhelmed but grateful as these strangers discussed her needs with the care of family. Mrs. Patterson had already spoken to Sophia's new principal, who wanted to meet about counseling services and flexible scheduling. Sarah launched a GoFundMe. $3,000 poured in the first day, shared by neighbors, co-workers, and strangers who left notes like, "Lost my spouse to cancer. Want to help you keep your daughter." Local businesses joined in. Murphy's Diner planned a benefit breakfast. The auto shop offered free maintenance on Maria's car. The grocery store placed donation jars at every register. "They don't even know us," Maria said to Elena. "They know you're a mother fighting for her child," Elena replied. "That's enough." Sophia threw herself into making thank-you cards, each one decorated with drawings of Bella. Delivering them became a weekly ritual. Visiting donors, Sophia proudly presenting her cards, telling how Bella had found us and brought us to all these nice people. Bella, now a local favorite, patiently accepted hugs and showed off tricks Sophia had taught her. "This is what communities are for," Martinez said one night, watching Sophia and Isabella play in the yard. "They see a family worth fighting for, and they fight." At the Regional Medical Center's Cancer Treatment Unit, Maria found a new kind of community. Janet, a fellow patient, told her, "It's scary at first, but you'll see, we become like family here." Soon Maria looked forward to treatment days for the conversation as much as the care. She joined a Tuesday night support group led by Dr. Williams, meeting people who understood without explanation. "Fighting for Sophia gives me strength I might not have." Fighting just for myself, Maria realized. Sophia adapted quickly. In first grade, she became known as the class expert on dogs, writing stories about police dogs who save families. On career day, Martinez brought Bella for a demonstration, Sophia proudly assisting and telling the clifftop story. Bella knew we needed help before we did. Miss Garcia, her teacher, noticed she's unusually good at comforting other kids. I think Bella taught her how to see when someone needs kindness. Maria's fear of being alone was gone, replaced by a network that felt like family. "I used to think asking for help made you weak," she told Dr. Williams. "Now I see it makes you stronger." 3 months after the clifftop, Bella was officially seeing its impact. Bella could accompany Sophia to school, medical visits, and anywhere she needed comfort. Sophia beamed when she learned, "Does this mean Bella is my dog?" "It means she's your special friend who'll always be there," Martinez explained. Bella seemed to understand. She was always near Sophia when she sensed anxiety, nudging her hand or lying close until she relaxed. At school, her presence calmed not just Sophia, but the entire class. Ms. Garcia reported, "Several anxious students are doing better since Bella came." Sophia trained Bella at lunch, showing classmates how she could count by barking the right number of times. The bond gave Sophia confidence and a sense of purpose. During Maria's treatments, Bella rested her head on Sophia's lap, offering comfort the medical staff marveled at. She even seemed to know when Maria's side effects were worst. staying close to both mother and daughter. "She knows we're a package deal," Maria told Martinez, watching Sofia read to Bella. The school counselor suggested Sofia keep a journal about Bella. One entry read, "Bella helped Tommy when he was sad about his dad. She knows when people are sad, even when they hide it. That's her superpower." Bella's role spread into the wider community. She became a mascot at the school, greeted by name in the neighborhood. "I thought we saved them that night," Martinez told Elena. "But maybe they saved us too." For Sofia, Bella was a bridge from fear to hope. "You're the best friend anyone could have," Sofia told her one evening. "When I grow up, I want to help kids the way you help me. Maybe be a police officer with a dog partner." Bella's tail wagged, as if she approved. Maria watched her daughter's confidence and kindness grow, and knew she'd made the right choice on the clifftop. To trust, to hope, and to let love in. 2 years after that desperate night on the clifftop, Maria sat once again in Dr. Patterson's office. The room was unchanged, same diplomas, same chairs, but everything else in her life had transformed. This time, she wasn't alone. Sofia, now 7 and brimming with confidence, sat beside her. And Elena had insisted on coming to hear the results. "Maria, I have wonderful news," Dr. Patterson said, smiling broadly. "Your scans are completely clear. No signs of cancer. Based on your response to treatment, I can say you're officially in remission." Relief washed over Maria. Sofia jumped up, eyes wide. "Does this mean Mama is all better? Forever?" "It means she's very healthy right now," the doctor said gently. "And she's going to be around a long, long time to watch you grow up." Elena pulled them both into a Patterson from church with her famous cake. Sofia's teacher, Miss Garcia, with classmates. Members of Maria's support group, all gathered to celebrate. Bella, now 9, with silver in her muzzle, moved among the guests like a dignified elder, still watchful over Sofia. Under the oak tree, Sofia whispered to her dog, "Mama smiles all the time now. I think she likes being not sick." Martinez joined Maria at the edge of the crowd, watching Sofia demonstrate Bella's latest trick. "Thinking about that night?" he asked. "I almost stole all this from her because I was too scared to believe it was possible," Maria said softly. "But you didn't," Martinez reminded her. "You chose hope over fear. Look what that choice created." As the evening wound down, Sofia declared, "This was the best day ever, because everyone we love was here, and Bella looked so happy when people told her she's a good dog." Bella leaned against her legs, perfectly content. 6 months later, Maria was back at the Family Resource Center, but now as a peer counselor. Sarah had suggested the role, and Maria had realized she could offer something precious to other parents facing what she once had. Sitting across from Jennifer, a young mother whose 3-year-old son had leukemia, Maria saw her own fear from 2 years earlier. "What if I'm not strong enough?" Jennifer whispered. Maria reached for her hands. "Then you love him fiercely for whatever time you have. You build a community around him, and you trust that love is always the right choice, even when you can't see the outcome." Over the months, Maria discovered she had a gift for guiding families through the chaos of serious illness. She trained as a certified peer counselor and began working with the hospital's social work department. Sofia naturally joined in, creating artwork for the children's oncology ward. Dinosaurs for Marcus, princess castles for Emma, each piece designed to brighten a hospital room. Bella's role expanded too. Officially certified as a therapy dog for the pediatric oncology unit, she visited twice a week, offering calm to frightened children and playful distraction to those craving normalcy. Martinez often accompanied them. watching Bella adapt to each child's needs, lying still beside one who was too weak to move, engaging in gentle games with another. "She's extraordinary," said Dr. Williams, Maria's former support group facilitator. "I've worked with therapy dogs for 15 years, and I've never seen one with such intuitive understanding of what each child needs." Maria knew it wasn't just Bella's training, it was the bond they all shared, born on a night when hope seemed impossible, and strengthened by every act of kindness since. Sophia had appointed herself as Bella's assistant and interpreter, explaining to nervous children that Bella was there to help them feel braver and safer. Bella, other children, matter-of-factly, "She found us when we were very scared and brought us to people who could help. Now she helps lots of kids who are scared, because that's what Bella does. She makes everything better." The community outreach programs that Maria and Martinez developed together became a model for other police departments interested in expanding their crisis intervention services. They created protocols for connecting families in emergency situations with long-term support resources, and they trained officers in recognizing the signs of family crisis that might not be immediately obvious. "What we learned," Martinez explained to a conference of police officers and social workers, "is that sometimes the most important intervention isn't stopping a crisis in the moment. It's connecting people with community resources that prevent future crises from developing." Their program had expanded to include monthly support groups for families dealing with various challenges, community education workshops on crisis recognition and intervention, and a network of trained volunteers who could provide immediate assistance to families identified by police officers during routine calls. Maria's story had become a powerful tool for encouraging other parents to seek help before reaching the point of desperation. She spoke at churches, community centers, and professional conferences, always emphasizing that asking for help was a sign of strength, and that communities wanted to support families in crisis. 2 years ago, I was convinced that love meant protecting my daughter from a world that would hurt her, Maria would tell audiences. But I learned that love actually means introducing her to a world full of people who will choose to care for her. The difference is profound, and it's the difference between despair and hope. Sophia always insisted on attending these speaking engagements, not because she fully understood the content, but because she wanted to make sure people met Bella and understood how important it was to have a dog friend when life got scary. The cycle of help and healing that had begun with Martinez and Bella's intervention that night on the clifftop had expanded into something much larger, a network of support that touched dozens of families and created a community culture where reaching out for help was seen as normal and healthy rather than shameful. On Sophia's 8th birthday, 3 years after that transformative night on the clifftop, she made an announcement that surprised no one but delighted everyone. She wanted to officially declare Martinez Uncle Miguel and Bella Aunt Bella in front of all their friends and family. "They're not just helpers anymore," Sophia explained to Elena, with the serious expression she wore when discussing important matters. "They're our family now, and I think it's important that everyone knows that officially." The birthday party, held in Elena's backyard under the oak tree that had become the Science family's traditional gathering spot, turned into an impromptu ceremony of chosen family. Sophia stood on a chair that Isabella held steady, with Bella sitting attentively beside them, and made her formal declaration. "Uncle Miguel and Aunt Bella," she announced to the assembled crowd of neighbors, friends, and extended community family, "thank you for saving me and Mama and bringing us home to Abuela Elena and Isabella. You taught us that families can choose each other and that love gets bigger when you share it with more people." Martinez felt tears in his eyes as he knelt down to Sophia's level. "Sofia Santos," he said formally, It would be the greatest honor of my life to be your Uncle Miguel. And I know Bella feels the same way about being your Aunt Bella. Bella, now 10 years old and moving more slowly, but still devoted to her charges, wagged her tail and gently licked Sophia's face, which the little girl interpreted as official acceptance of her new title. The extended family that had grown around Maria and Sophia now included not just Martinez, Elena, and Isabella, but Sarah and her family, members of Maria's cancer support group who had become close friends, Sophia's teachers who stayed involved in her life long after she left their classrooms, and dozens of community members who had simply chosen to love this little girl and her mother. Holiday celebrations rotated between houses, with Christmas at Elena's, Thanksgiving at Sarah's, and Easter at the church, where Father Rodriguez had become like a beloved uncle to Sophia. Birthday parties always included the entire extended network, creating celebrations that looked more like small festivals than individual family gatherings. "You know what I love most about our family?" Sophia told Maria one evening as they worked together on homework at Elena's kitchen table, with Bella supervising from her favorite spot at Sophia's feet. "It's that we chose each other. Isabella explained to me that most families just happen because people have babies, but we picked each other because we liked each other and wanted to take care of each other." Maria marveled daily at the confident, secure child Sophia had become. A little girl who moved through the world assuming people would be kind to her, who made friends easily because she expected to be liked, who approached new situations with curiosity rather than fear. The love that surrounded Sophia wasn't romantic love, but something equally powerful, the love of chosen family, of community bonds, forged through crisis and strengthened through shared joy. Maria had found something she hadn't even known she was looking for, a place where she belonged completely, where her value wasn't contingent on what she could provide, but simply on who she was. Bella, now officially recognized as a community hero and the recipient of several awards for her therapy work, had become something of a local legend. Children throughout the neighborhood knew her story and would stop to pet her during walks, telling their parents about the famous dog who saved families and helped sick kids feel better. "She's getting old," Sophia confided to Martinez one afternoon, as they watched Bella nap in a patch of sunlight, gray now around her muzzle, and moving more stiffly than she once had. "Still the most wonderful dog in the world, and she still makes everyone feel safer." Martinez nodded, knowing that Bella's advancing age was something they would all need to face together, but also knowing that the love and security she had helped create would outlast her physical presence. On quiet evenings, Sophia could often be found reading to Bella under the oak tree in Elena's backyard, the same tree where they had celebrated Maria's recovery, where birthday parties and holiday gatherings took place, where the extended family came together for important conversations and everyday moments alike. Once upon a time, Sophia read from her favorite book of fairy tales, her voice carrying clearly through the evening air. There was a little girl who thought she was all alone in the world. But then she met a magic dog who showed her that the world was full of people who wanted to love her, and she lived happily ever after with her chosen family. Bella's tail thumped gently against the ground as she listened, her amber eyes peaceful and content, surrounded by the voices and laughter of the family she had helped create through her instinctive understanding of who needed saving and her unwavering commitment to making sure no one faced life's challenges alone. The story that had begun in despair on a clifftop had become a story of hope, community, and the transformative power of love that chooses to multiply rather than diminish. And in the golden evening light filtering through the oak tree's branches, with Sophia's voice reading stories of adventure and happy endings, surrounded by the sounds of family and home, it was clear that this particular fairy tale would continue for many years to come. Maria and Sophia's story reminds us of something profound, that the bond between humans and dogs transcends simple companionship. Bella's intuitive understanding, her unwavering loyalty, and her gentle wisdom saved more than lives that night. She saved hope itself. German shepherds like Bella possess an extraordinary gift for reading human hearts. They sense our pain before we voice it, offer comfort without being asked, and stand guard over what matters most to us. In Bella's steady presence, Sophia found security. In her amber eyes, Maria discovered trust. In her protective instincts, an entire community witnessed the transformative power of unconditional love. These connections, between human and dog, between heart and heart, remind us that we're never truly alone when we come. You've ever wondered how to deepen that precious bond? There are gentle ways to strengthen the connection you already share. Sometimes, a caring conversation with someone who truly understands these relationships can open doors to even richer understanding. Your dog's love is already perfect, but the journey together can always grow deeper.